Okay, so Toby and I are out in the wilderness near Woodland Park, just gonna do some kind of drone image quality comparisons. We've got 4 DJI drones to pick from here. We've got the DJI Mini 2, which is Toby's. Then we've got the DJI Mini 3 Pro, which is mine. We've got the DJI Air 2S, which is also mine. And then the DJI Mavic 3, which is also mine. Just wanna kind of go through, check the image quality, check, operability controls, see how well they, each fly, because obviously different levels of power, different levels of, size. And, just kind of go from there. I've, been looking at kind of paring my set down of these 3 drones, so it'd be nice to kind of have an actual comparison between them. So one of the main kind of differences of all these drones is the sensor size. So they go from kind of small, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. The one in the Mini 2 is, about your smartphone kind of sensor. It's, little tiny, not great dynamic range, not great sharpness, but it makes the drone super tiny. Next step up is the Mini 3 Pro, which is close to a 1-inch sensor, but not quite. Next up is the Air 2S, which is a 1-inch sensor, so kind of similar to something like a Sony RX100. So more dynamic range on there, more sharpness, better low light. And then getting to the Mavic 3, which has a micro four thirds sensor in it, which is pretty similar to like a GH5 or GH6 or an Olympus camera or something like that. Just it's in a drone. And again, more dynamic range than the rest, better sharpness, better low light out of the Mavic 3, but it's bigger. So at this point, it kind of boils down to, if you want the smallest but least image quality, and then moving up to the biggest but best image quality, it's, those are all the trade-offs that you want. I use the Mini 3 Pro a lot for like hiking videos or, stuff in the mountains, where it's decent enough image quality compared to how shockingly small this is compared to even the Air 2S, which is quite a bit bigger, bigger and heavier. It's got a lot more metal in the construction. I don't necessarily want to carry this up Handy's Peak or anything like that. Same with the Mavic 3. But if I'm doing an actual job, then, I'll pick the Mavic 3 pretty much every time, unless, we're hiking in for something. And even then, I might bring this anyway. Battery life is really interesting, because like when I started flying drones like 6 years ago, like a Phantom 2 with a GoPro on it, you would get like 10 or 15 minutes tops out of one of those giant batteries, maybe 20 minutes if it wasn't windy. Now, out of the Air 2S, I was really impressed with its battery life at like 25 minutes. And then I got the Mini 3 Pro, and my second flight on it was 45 minutes on one battery. Like, that's insane. For something, this small with a battery, that big. It was the extended range battery. I did pay a little bit more for that, but even the normal battery could still give you like 35 or 40 minutes out of it. I've also had a few flights on the Mavic 3 that I've gotten close to 40 minutes on, where I've just like kind of taken it up, gotten some other stuff set up, and it's just hung out, done its thing, and then I kind of go do my shots, and then I wait a little bit more to see if the sunset gets any better, do a few more shots, wait a little bit more, the light gets even better, do another shot, and then come back and land. Whereas, with some of the older drones like the Mini 2 or the Mavic Air 2, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to bring it back, switch the battery, and then real quick try and get back up and get back to my position, as the sun was changing. Whereas with this one, I could just kind of wait. Or like a good example of that is with the Air 2S, which has decent battery life. I was shooting a wedding, and I had to like get a shot on one side of the building, and then like, kind of wait for the bride and groom to go inside, get something real quick, meet us on the other side of the building. I just had the drone hang out, got all of our shots on the other side of the building, and then the sun basically went down right after that, brought it back. It was great. Didn't have to land it, take it through the building, switch batteries, take it off again. We could just kind of take the bride and groom, do the shot, let them do the thing, go outside, do the shot, and they didn't have to wait for us to fiddle with the drone the whole time. We just could just take it up, get the shot, wait, go over, boom, another shot, bring it down. It was great. That was a lot of stuff on batteries. As far as safety goes on these, the Mini 2, no sensors, no safety sensors. If you fly it straight towards the tree, it's gonna crash into the tree. It's not gonna give you any warning. It'll just boom. So, you know, strangely enough, their, you know, cheapest kind of entry-level one is the one with the least amount of safety features on it. And then, you know, once you go up a step, you know, the Mini 3 Pro does have forward sensors, backward sensors, and down-facing sensors. I think this one has down-facing sensors, yes it does. This one has forward, backwards, and down sensors, so, you know, if you're doing a flyback shot or anything like that, you know, this one will stop itself. This will stop itself from running into something. You know, not as many sensors as this guy, but I found this is really good. Air 2S has the same amount of sensors as the Mini 3 Pro, you know, forwards, backwards, down. It doesn't have left or right sensors. That's how I got in trouble with my first Air 2S. This is my second Air 2S. I'll let you read into that what you will. Flying sideways, cliff, boom, bye, see you drone. Still very good sensors, you know, for flying forwards, backwards. I think the sensors on this one, because it's bigger, are better than on the Mini 3 Pro. But then, you know, the Mac Daddy, the Mavic 3 Pro, has sensors on the bottom, it's got sensors on the front, it's got sensors on the top, it's got sensors on the back, so it has like a full 360 sphere around it where it's got, you know, sensors to prevent itself from hopefully crashing. I did, you know, try and fly it through some trees near Helen Hunt Falls, and it was like, nope, I see a tree right over there, I'm not gonna go farther, I'll go over this way, and, you know, it did a very good job of keeping me from crashing it into a tree, which was very nice of it considering how expensive it is. But, you know, that is something, after I crashed my first Air 2S, that I really was looking for, that was kind of side sensors, so that does help quite a bit with the Mavic 3. But again, you pay for it, and, you know, bigger, heavier, harder to pack with you. Okay, as far as image quality, you know, image formats go, you've got like 8-bit 420 footage on this guy. You got 10-bit 420 on this one. You got 10-bit 422 here and 10-bit 422 here. So, you know, does make them more editable, more gradable in post as you move, you know, up market. This one I found you can't edit a ton. I do, you know, have some nice footage out of it, especially, you know, I took this to a few weddings in Mexico and was phenomenally happy with the footage out of it, but I couldn't push it very hard. Whereas, you know, it'd be really nice to have had this one at that point, but, you know, I've found that I can push the footage out of this little guy a lot farther than I thought for, you know, what the format is in. I do like having the 10-bit. It means I can match this a lot better with my other cameras. This one I found is very robust. You know, I can change white balance, change exposure a decent amount, and it doesn't really fall apart. And then, you know, Mavic 3, super solid, high bit rate, 10-bit, 422, larger sensor, like, it's great. Best image quality in a drone I've used. I don't have an Inspire, but I like the size of this. I like the image quality out of this. I've had very good luck with, you know, even cropping it a little bit on this sensor. You know, all of these will shoot really good 4K, but this one will shoot 5.1K, so it gives you just a little bit bigger image. This one will shoot, I think, 5.4K, so even a little bit more resolution than this one, but smaller sensor. This one will do 4K up to 60p. This one will do 4K up to 30p, I believe. Who is each of these drones for? Mini 2 is, you know, beginner drone. Obviously you need to be careful because it doesn't have the sensors, but, you know, it's fun to fly, it's light, you can just chuck it in your backpack. You know, it's easier to kind of deal with than some of the, you know, higher end drones. Easier footage to just kind of pull off the drone and throw on the internet. You don't really have to do any editing to it. You know, it's great for that. Mini 3 Pro is for, you know, someone who might have had a smaller drone or an older drone that wants a little bit of a bump up in image quality but still doesn't want something huge. You know, that 10-bit is a pretty big upgrade as far as, you know, gradability, editability goes, even for how still tiny this drone is. Air 2S is, you know, if you're like a wedding shooter, I think the Air 2S would be great. You know, it's not huge like the Mavic 3. It still gives great 10-bit, you know, beautiful color out of it, great sharpness, great low light performance if you know, need a shot later, you know, wedding venue, send off, whatever. I think the Air 2S is probably one of the best wedding drones out right now. And then, you know, Mavic 3, Mavic 3 Cine, Mavic 3 Classic are more professional drones that still fold up smaller, you know, significantly smaller than something like an Inspire 2, that you could still chuck this in your backpack and hike it up a mountain if you needed to. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that with an Inspire 2. Obviously they go, you know, up in price. We'll kind of get the prices going. I don't remember them offhand, but you know, Mini 2, Mini 3 Pro, Air 2S, Mavic 3. The price goes from like $400 all the way up to like 2,800, 3,000, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I think, you know, they're all great. They're all phenomenal compared to, you know, where drones were a few years ago. I've been very happy, you know, shooting professional things with all of these, you know, even the Mini 3, even the Mini 2. Like I mentioned, you know, I'll put example footage from all of these things, you know, as I've kind of been talking about them. But I think we're gonna go do some flying here, get some example footage from each of these that's all like kind of the same footage versus having, you know, different footage from different places for each one. And it'll kind of go back, actually look at it on the computer, because, you know, looking at it on the little screen, you can't really tell. And then I'll kind of have some thoughts about each of these in a bit.
This one advantage for the Mini 2 is that we're flying it last, so it has the most side lit the most.
The nicest light.
The nicest light. It's cheating. Well, there we go. We got all 4 drones up and got pretty close to matching them all up. I think that Kevin may be a slightly better pilot than me, but I am excited to get to see what all the footage looks like compared in the studio, especially after we put some color grading in and make it look fancy. But we'll also be showing, of course, pretty much the raw footage Definitely, I will say though, those diffusion filters, I think they really helped, at least with the flare in particular, over the house. That was a really cool touch or addition, I think, for anyone out there interested in getting drones. So which ones were you using again, Kevin?
Yeah, so I'm using the Freewell variable ND diffusion filters. You know, maybe that affects the image quality. I don't particularly mind it. You know, this is more of a comparison on how I would actually use it for like a professional shoot or something. I'm gonna do that versus, you know, trying to pixel peep or anything. I think it's more useful to me to compare them in that aspect than anything like that.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's also, it definitely helps with that kind of more cinematic look, I think, to have like a little bit of diffusion. I run diffusion filters on my main camera all the time. I just don't have any filters for the drone. So
yep.
But here's the little guy. It's
so cute.
It's a very small little sandwich-sized drone.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll go take a look and kind of let you know our thoughts on comparing all these.
All right. We'll see you on the other side.
See ya. I've had some time to look at the results on the computer, and they're all great. Depending on what you need, I don't think you can go wrong. They're all a lot better than, you know, what we all started with years ago in terms of, you know, image quality, sharpness, dynamic range, all that. I think in terms of operability, obviously the Mavic 3 is the best, with then kind of going down from there. It's the most responsive. You can tell that the motors are the most powerful. It's, you know, just the fastest, getting up, getting down, moving around. And it's just, you know, a joy to fly, but it's also $3,000. I think as far as my use case goes, I'm going to keep the Mavic 3 and the Mini 3 Pro and sell the Air 2S. I think it's just, you know, if I'm gonna take a smaller drone, I'll want the Mini. If I'm gonna take a more professional drone, I'll take the Mavic. Then this is kind of in a weird in-between that I don't really need. That being said, I think the Air 2S is probably one of the best all-around kind of professional drones right now for wedding videographers or commercial videographers, real estate photographers and videographers that just need, you know, something that's super solid image quality. It's got 10-bit, it's got, you know, a fairly large sensor, but it's not as big as, you know, the Mavic 3. And it still flies very well, decent battery life. So I think this is a great choice for most people like that. But because I have the better one and the smaller one, I think I'm kind of going to sell that one. So if anyone's interested, let me know. As far as kind of pixel peeping and everything goes, I don't really want to do that. I'm more evaluating these in terms of how I would use them in, you know, professional situations. So if you want like super in-depth technical reviews, go look at like Philip Bloom's reviews or anything. He's obviously the best at any of those. I'm just kind of looking at these, how I would use them, hence why I have, you know, ND filters on them and, you know, have my shutter speed at a 50th of a second and all those things, because that's how I'll use them, you know, on a professional shoot. I'm still very, very impressed with all of them. It was cool seeing the comparison between, you know, Mini 2, Mini 3 Pro, Air 2S, and Mavic 3. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you've used any of these drones, let me, you know your experiences with them. If you, you know, have another drone that you kind of want to compare to these, let me know as well. And yeah, we can just kind of, you know, talk about drones. Drones are fun. So thanks for watching. I'll, you know, have some more hiking stuff going, but it's winter, so it's cold. So I'm just kind of inside most of the time. So it's kind of fun to compare these. So definitely thanks for watching. Thanks for making it this far. You know, I haven't really done too many of these videos, so I'm still kind of getting used to it. And see you in the next one. Thanks.